You know, my earliest memories of what I wanted to be would probably be a fighter pilot. You know, I always wanted to fly a plane. I liked the element of risk. I always liked jumping out of trees and jumping my bike and jumping off cliffs.
I think I wanted to become an architect or a draftsman. I enjoyed designing things. I enjoyed working with my hands.
I always wanted to grow up and become a ship captain because at a young age I had a boat and my dog, and I'd spend hours out there.
My dad turns to me and he goes, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" You know, and I'm 9 years old. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I think maybe I want to be a businessman or I want to be a lawyer. But I'm also thinking about being a pastor." And I wanted to make a difference with my life. Little did I know the path that it would take me on.
I always thought I'd be married, have kids, you know, have a house, job, you know, the typical like Brady Bunch-like family.
Well, I just wanted to be, you know, a kid, really.
I wanted to be a pilot. Well, my life didn't start off being happy, so it was hard to be hopeful.
I was in the parking lot of Microsoft getting ready to pick up some software from a friend of mine. And I had just gotten back from Africa and I saw the horrible plight of the children of Africa. It really hit me. What if you took the wealth of one American company like Microsoft and you decided to do good with it? It was then that the whole concept of becoming a mission-based entrepreneur was developed.
Growing up around the age of 10, I got curious. I was an only child. I tried a cigarette at recess in the schoolyard. From there it escalated to marijuana, and I wound up in my first treatment center when I was 14 years old from cocaine abuse.
During the end of my junior, beginning of senior year, I started partying, drinking, then started selling drugs, and later started using them. I had some opportunities to play college football, but those goals just grew more distant as I began to pursue drugs and alcohol.
Ended up in a young age being institutionalized and was in a home for boys all the way through my junior and senior high years. Impulsively at 19, joined the Army, and I began to not only use drugs but pack drugs back to the base. And anyway, to make a long and painful story short, I was labeled as subversive and left the Army.
So when we moved here to Portland, I got a job in a hotel management company. And one of the partners and I would talk about utilizing the funds that we were making from hotels to make a difference in people's lives. And pretty soon our broker came to us and said, "Hey, I know that you've been looking for a hotel for sort of a non-profit endeavor." And he said, "I've got just the place for you."
I'm a divorced single mother of 3 kids. Before I came to my father's house, I was an apartment manager. I had tenants throw a brick through my window. I had someone spray my front door with a fire extinguisher, and when I opened it, because I heard something, it sprayed all on me and my kids' face. Getting spit on.
She got in the accident, so she had to go to the prison, so me and the 3 kids, you know, lived with my parents for a while, my sister and my parents. And then she lost her house, and we didn't have any place to go.
Well, I was just a dancer, and I lived in my own apartment. I was paying weekly, you know, for a car, making car payments weekly, and just living a normal life, you know.
Little did we know that we had bought the biggest methamphetamine distribution center and prostitution place in Portland, Oregon, and that they were renting rooms by the hour. And we didn't know all that when we first bought it. We simply had a dream. It was probably about 6 months into it that I realized that we were way over our heads. Plumbing was shot, the electrical was shot. We had way underestimated the construction costs of what we needed to do, and we were $1.5 million short.
Holding down a good job, holding down a marriage, but all the while living a double life, hanging out at the bars, selling drugs, getting into trouble. I started doing heroin about 10 years ago at the age of 28, and from there 13 detoxes, 6 other treatment centers, loss of marriage, loss of son, loss of jobs, loss of families, homelessness, eating out of garbage cans, in and out of soup kitchens, in and out of jail, pretty much lost everything.
My first attempt at a treatment center was in 2005 when I became addicted to Oxycontin and heroin. That treatment only worked for 3 or 4 months, and I slowly progressed back into my old ways and my old habits. And I've actually been to 3 treatment centers total, and the last 2 have been in the last 2 years, and I got dismissed or terminated from those treatment centers early because of bad behavior.
Hitchhiking across California, I came to Hollywood. It was a Saturday night, February 7th of 1970. I was in the middle of a drug deal on the Strip, and that's where somebody came and brought the gospel to me. And that night I had no clue that I would see transformation in my life. I ended up joining that ministry, came to Christ, and was absolutely blown away that God was real.
About January of 2005, when we landed about $1.5 million of capital to be able to finish the job. What was amazing to me is just to see the change in the community, because the dream was beginning to be realized. Volunteers came, people from the church came, people from the community came, and so many people began to sow into this to help make this thing a reality. We started getting recognition from our brand and soon became the #1 quality inn and suites literally worldwide. And then we started getting programs. We started getting a recovery program. We had a job training program. We had counseling services.
Well, I quit on the spot after the brick incident, and I went to stay with a friend that I have known for 16 years, and I started college at Mount Hood. And after about 4 months of staying with her, we realized that we weren't, good as roommates, and it was her home, so I'm the one that had to, up and leave, and after that I had nowhere to go.
Basically, I ended up pregnant, and because my son right now is going on 11 months. And so I was living with my brother trying to get stable, and then they got evicted from their apartment. We were living with someone else, and then my son was removed from my custody because he fell from a shopping cart, and they thought I had to be under the influence for that to happen.
My other sister-in-law called my father's house, and they took us in.
Our philosophy is not that you try to do something yourself, but that you partner together with other people. We partnered and gave Freedom House space on our campus to say you can have as many rooms as you need here. Just come and do what you're gifted to do best. Rather than try to compete, we tried to complete one another.
I felt Freedom House was a ministry that we were to develop and pioneer, but I didn't have a location. Men were talking to me about meeting Pastor Eric, and what I later found out was men were talking to Eric about meeting Pastor Jim. And within just an hour of us meeting together, he opened the door for us to place our offices and ultimately our ministry in the motel setting, and that's how Freedom House got launched. And during that 5-year window, we probably worked with approximately 30 to 35 men every year. So it was about 150 to 160 men and their families that were touched in one way, shape, or form through their involvement with Freedom House and Eastside Foursquare.
When I walked through the doors of Freedom House, like I was lost and broken and desperate. I'd come to a point in my life where it was either get busy living or get busy dying. I wasn't quite ready to die. I heard about a faith-based treatment center from my grandparents when I was in the psych ward. The year-long commitment jumped off was the only thing that I saw. A couple months later I said the year sounds good to me. It was better than what I was doing. It was winter and I was homeless.
I first came into Freedom House in November 2009, and almost instantly when I came in I realized that there was something different about the program. They began to tell me about the future that God had in store for me. Because before that, I just thought that I was just predestined to be a drug addict, somebody who nobody wanted to have around, and who could never do anything right.
So the way that we helped My Father's House is we began to partner with the same heart and the same dream for community transformation. Kathy wrote most of the grants and we got grant work. Our church contributed money and volunteers. I contributed leadership. So my father's house went from a duplex on a very busy road to now really a beautiful 3-story, 35-room shelter that ended up being the largest single-family shelter in America that was ever built that does not receive government support.
Well, one of my favorite classes here at my father's house is the Genesis class. And in that class, we learn about false beliefs. For instance, I grew up with a father who called me an idiot and stupid every day of my life, and that's a false belief because I know that I'm not now.
Okay, my favorite class at my father's house was Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace because we got to learn budgeting, and it helps you learn about credit cards and debt and bank accounts and, you know, everything financial.
Yeah, my father's house is kind of like family, like Kathy and Dan that kind of run the place, and Ted, he's like my counselor. My kids call Kathy and Dan Grandma and Grandpa, and Ted's like a brother, like my best friend.
The hotel wasn't just about us. And anytime you do a mission-based entrepreneur work, it is never about you. It's got to be about other people. Life is not about acquiring more stuff. Life is not about a bigger house and more toys. I think life is about those who you help. And really, the happiest people that I know are the people that are helping others.
I came to Freedom House January the 8th of 2008, and I've been clean ever since then. I've had my 9-year-old son Tyler restored to me, which is a miracle. And I've now been a staff member for 1 year with Freedom House, and I've seen God transform my life and many others' lives.
After I graduate Freedom House, I have some plans and goals to be able to help younger kids in the community that I came from, that I might be able to steer them in the right direction so they don't have to make the choices or the decisions that I did.
We were able then to begin to look for a permanent home for Freedom House. We have about a 3-acre facility that we've located and about 16,000 square feet in 6 buildings of program space.
Well, the best thing my father's house has done for me was reunited me with my son and put us back together and helped me to feel like I'm able to do what I need to do to be a mom in the community on my own, and give me the confidence to try.
Before, I didn't do anything for anybody except myself. Well, since I've been here, I want to, we're actually, me and my wife, are going to sponsor a room and to help other families.
Well, I see myself having a career. I'd like to be finished with college, and I'd like to take a vacation and not necessarily own my own home, but be stable wherever I'm living.
For me, when I travel down the road or I'm here in Portland and I see people without hope, man, it breaks my heart, because I know that if they would just open their lives up and be open to God, that He'd come in and fill their life with so much hope and so much power.
It's so nice to have met you. It's so nice.